What's up guys, welcome to another video at Movement Mechanics, and today we are going to talk about an interesting topic which is related to endurance runners and recovery between two bouts of high intense running, which is your VO2 max. Now if you are an endurance athlete like Eliud Kipchoge, you need to know what is your VO2 max. Or if you are a cricketer like Virat Kohli, you need to know what is your VO2 max. On the other hand, if you are a tennis player like Rafael Nadal, you need to know what is your VO2 max. But what is this VO2 max? It is just a big fancy name, but what VO2 max actually is, we are going to understand exactly the same in this video. How do you use VO2 max for your training modalities? How do you derive intensities based on your VO2 max? And also what we are going to understand in this video is what are the testing methodologies to get your VO2 max, or the so-called maximum aerobic speed. So let's dive deep inside this topic and understand some movement mechanics. Whenever the duration of any activity exceeds more than 3 minutes, you start deriving energy from the oxidative system. Now, when we talk about the oxidative system, one of the most important part of oxidative system, or the entire oxidative system is dependent on that part, is basically oxygen. Now, when we talk about VO2 max or maximal aerobic speed, oxygen becomes the most important factor, because the definition of VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen which can be consumed and used by the working muscles in the human body. Also, what is MAS? Is it something different or same as VO2 max? MAS is nothing but the speed at which you have got maximum aerobic output. That is what is MAS. Now, MAS or maximal aerobic speed is equal to VO2 max. Hence, these terms can be used interchangeably in the context of this video by me. So before we get into the programming aspect based on your VO2 max, we need to understand how to test your VO2 max. Now there are two methods. One is the laboratory method and one is the field test method. In the lab method, you either run on a treadmill or you sit on a cycle, and there is a mask attached to your mouth, and the mask or the machine calculates the amount of air inhaled versus the amount of air exhaled to get your VO2 max. The higher the difference between the inhaled versus exhaled air, the greater the VO2 max could be. Now this is one of the most accurate methods of calculating your VO2 max, because there is no error over here, because it is basically a machine based method. Now the two of the field tests which I personally use for calculating your MAS or your VO2 max are beep test and the 2.4 kilometer time trial. The beep test I generally use for team sports because of number of athletes, but if you are dealing with endurance athletes who are into individual sports, then you should be utilizing the 2.4 kilometer time trial. Now there are certain formulas which you need to do after getting the values of the beep test as well as the 2.4 kilometer time trial test, and input those formulas and you get your VO2 max, or the speed at which the athletes have been running the entire test. The formulas I would be putting into the description so that you can go to the formulas and get your VO2 max sorted based on your beep test as well as the 2.4 kilometer time trial. So if you have got any doubts regarding those formulas, you can comment in the section below. Now the question arises on how you can utilize your VO2 max for programming your conditioning programs. Now VO2 max can be used for two of the methods of conditioning. One is slow continuous runs and one is high intensity interval training programs. Of course, the duration when you are prescribing any program based on your VO2 max has to be on the higher side, roughly around starting from 1 minute and ranging towards 4, 5 or even 6 minutes as well. So when we are talking about slow continuous runs, these runs can be from 30 minutes to 120 minutes or even on the higher side. At that time, the intensities has to be roughly around 60 to 70% of your VO2 max, or even slightly higher to 75% of your VO2 max. Now, if you are talking about high intensity interval runs for improving your VO2 max altogether, then that intensity can be roughly around 85% to 95% of your VO2 max. Now, if you want to improve your lactate threshold, the intensities can be roughly around 80% to 90% of your VO2 max as well. Anything above 90%, you cannot sustain that particular run for longer duration. So you have to reduce the duration and increase the rest to work ratio. So how do you exactly derive these intensities? Now when you do all the calculation, maybe your beep test or maybe your 2.4 kilometer time trial or your VO2 max test in the lab, you are going to get anything, the speed in meters per second, because when we are talking about speed, we have to take it into meters per second and then derive your intensities. So once you get your speed in meters per second, let's say in this instance an athlete has got VO2 max of 5 meters per second, then you have to prescribe the intensities based on this 5 meters per second. So if you have to take 80% of 5 meters per second and the duration you want the athlete to run on that 80%, and then you give him the total distance, so that you get accurate data or conditioning program for the athlete to make him run a particular distance in particular amount of time. So these intensities can be varied based on athlete to athlete, because each and every athlete has going to have different VO2 max, and hence he or she will run at different intensities and based on your training goals as well. Alright guys, this was a very short and sweet video regarding VO2 max or your MAS. I've tried to give you a basic context of what is VO2 max and how you can use VO2 max for designing your conditioning programs. One factor you need to take into consideration is the duration of your conditioning program. Now, if the duration is anything above 30 seconds or 45 seconds, then at that time you can utilize VO2 max as your intensity marker. On the other hand, if the duration drops below 30 seconds, then at that time, or at 30 seconds as well precisely, at that time you need to utilize maximal sprinting speed as your intensity marker. Because if you are going to give, say, 80% of VO2 max for 10 seconds on and 10 seconds off for your high intensity interval training, then at that time that is not adequate amount of stress for the human body to gain adaptations. Hence, you need to be very accurate and you need to be very sure about what sort of intensities you want the athlete to run, and also what sort of durations you want the athlete to run in order to get maximum adaptations in the human body. So if you have loved this video, make sure you hit the like, the share, the subscribe, as well as the notification bell icon, so that you never miss a video whenever I'm uploading a new one. Also, if you've got any doubts or any comments regarding this video or any other video suggestions which you want me to come in the future, make sure you drop that in the comment section. Alright guys, see you in the next one.